I thought there were feelings, and I thought there was logic. And that they were all the issues. A clip of Ben Shapiro, I'm confident I can find something in it to make fun of, and I'm always right in that. Now Ben's kind of channeling like the high school 13-year-old vibe. I haven't seen this clip before. I just saw this for you. This is the first time I've actually seen the clip. Anytime I see a clip of Ben Shapiro, I'm confident I can find something in it to make fun of, and I'm always right in that respect. So I'm running this off the cuff. But right now, Ben Shapiro is very much being the 13-year-old edgelord, you know? He hasn't had sex. Actually, he did brag about being a virgin till marriage, so that tracks. Probably hasn't talked with many girls. He probably thinks girls are kind of dumb for the most part. Probably thinks that if he were president, he could just fix all the issues, you know? He could just solve everything himself. And I remember being a 13-year-old boy, and when I was a 13-year-old boy, this is how I thought. I thought there were two distinct things. I thought there were feelings, and I thought there was logic. And that they were two distinct things, and that people who had lots of logic, this was the hand I used for logic, who had lots of logic were good, and people who had lots of feelings are, if not bad, at least, intellectually deficient. That's what I thought. Now, here's the issue with that. See, the argument usually is we intake information from our world, we empirically derive data from our senses, and then we can do two things with those data. We can react to them in sort of an emotive way, or we can process them and try to arrive at conclusions through, a rational sort of process. The issue is, and here's the thing these types always forget, people's feelings are also a part of objective reality. If a person is sad, the fact that they are sad is empirically measurable. Now, of course, what does sad mean? It can get, muddy, but the fact that they are sad, or if a person is hungry, or if a person feels neglected on a social level, these are things which are empirically verifiable. Let me give you an example. Because how can you measure feelings? It's an excellent question. Close your eyes for a second, if you will. I'll do it with you, okay? Close your eyes. And now think. How would you describe the color blue to a blind person? You can open your eyes. How would you describe it? Water? Why would they have any association between water and blue? You can give them emotions or items or things that you associate with blue, but you can't actually give them the sensory experience of blue. It's not actually possible. And what you'll find is that's the case with a lot of stuff. For example, let's say you're a child psychologist and your job is to determine the extent to which people in a given community abuse their children. Okay, rough work, but that is a real thing a person could do. How would you determine abuse? Say you're not working from existing texts. You're not working from existing child psychiatry readings. You're trying to determine abuse through your own processes. How would you determine that exactly? What level of stomach, how empty does your stomach have to be and for how long? Do you create a formula for it? How hungry does a person have to be? What level of pain is reasonable? How wide the stick are they struck with? If you actually think about it, qualifying what abuse means is almost infinitely complicated, but intuitively understandable by almost all of us. I guarantee you, if I sat you motherfuckers down in a chair, gave you a pen and paper, you could not give me anything even close to a comprehensive understanding of what abuse means. But I with equal assurance, I say, I could show you the living situations of 10 children, and you could reliably pick which of those 10 are being abused. Do you agree with me? The secret to this magic that allows us to pull information without strictly adhering to hard empirical data, is empathy. Empathy crosses that bridge because we know what we would feel like in that situation, and by projecting ourselves onto them, we can see through our projected experience what abuse might look like in that situation. Now, it's not a perfect tool for arriving at conclusions. Ideally, an empathetic analysis should be tempered with a fuck ton of data, but this is how we determine whether a group of people are underprivileged. This is how we determine a lot of stuff that we use policy to address. How often have you heard the conservative politician talk about the death of small town America, the death of rural America? How often have you heard them talk about boarded up windows and shuttered shop doors? Heard them talk about no one buying from local businesses anymore? Heard them talk about cities eating up all the wealth and manpower? Do they qualify this with a comprehensive empirical analysis of all of the characteristics that go into the death of small town America? Or do they rely, as politicians often do, on a collective empathetic understanding of what it must be like to live in those circumstances? Ben Shapiro, my friend, you are being a 13-year-old boy, Ben Shapiro. You are not considering the fact that empathy is an essential tool in understanding and appropriately responding to social, everything, but yeah, social problems. So with that in mind, and I'm sorry, I know that was a little bit long-winded. I recognize that. But I think that understanding the importance of empathy even in a rigorous data-driven context is very, very, very important. Without it, we could not make the determinations we could. Here's an experiment, really quick, before we get back to the video. Here's an experiment I want you to do. I want you to have a simple 30-second conversation with a friend, family member, whatever. Just any conversation. And then I want you to think in your head how much implicit understanding both you and your conversational partner read into that. How little the conversation was about the words you used, and how much of it was about your shared interpretive understanding of the language you chose to partake in. What you'll find is most conversations have very little to do with your actual words and everything to do with the subtext underneath that language. And the only reason we're capable of understanding that subtext is because through empathy, we can project ourselves onto the experience of the listener, the looking glass self. Or you can Google that if you'd like, I suppose, if you want to LARP as me circa 2017 doing sociology homework. The words you use are as important as the subtext, though? I think it largely depends. When you say, for example, hi, how's it going, to a person walking by you who you're just meeting, the words are almost irrelevant. You could say almost anything. What's up? Hey, howdy. You could say almost anything. The words are largely irrelevant. The greeting, the semantic meaning, or the pragmatic meaning, I'm sorry, not the semantic meaning, is largely what takes precedence. But of course, if you're writing like a technical document, then obviously the words would be almost exclusively the important thing. The point I'm getting at is that it's important. So with that being said, let's return once more to Ben Shapiro, and we can address these points.
Okay, there's only one problem. Okay, empathy is actually kind of bad for politics. The reason that empathy is bad for politics is because it leads you to empathize with people that you are more likely to like, as opposed to people you don't like. Okay, so
hold on. One thing to address, and Ben Shapiro said this exactly as somebody in chat said it. Vosh, there are pitfalls when it comes to empathy. It's the mechanism that results in including people in in-groups and othering them in out-groups, in which case you can then feel morally allowed to be sadistic towards them. Think Blair White's Uncle Tom's. I don't think empathy is exclusively the mechanism that allows people to engage in tribalism. But as I said, you should always temper empathy with as much data as you can get. Absolutely. But that means, nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that empathy remains an essential tool in reasoning out social situations and even policymaking. So I responded to you and to Ben Shapiro there.
So first of all, the pitch for empathy is actually, there have been several books that are written on this, social science books, talking about how empathy is not actually the best thing for politics. It actually almost...
I like his language there. Empathy. There have been books. Several. There have been several books, and they say it's bad.
Deactivates the reasoning centers of your brain, because when you're empathetic, you don't actually create good policy. This doesn't...
Listen, Ben Shapiro is an argument against the idea that empathy is the only thing that deactivates the reasoning centers of your brain. As a matter of fact, it would seem, Ben, that there are actually many states of mind which accomplish that goal.
Doesn't mean that feeling sympathy for people is a bad thing. It means that if empathy is what drives your policymaking, you're probably not acting in a rational fashion.
When empathy drives your policymaking. So here's a question that I would love to ask to Ben. What if empathy has led you to believe that the circumstances of poor Americans are untenable, they're unethical, and that something should be done about it, and you're going to create policy to address that? Is that bad? Now, obviously, you should use data to reinforce A, whatever actual policy decisions you're going to make, and B, your understanding of what qualifies, as a poor person. Like, you should temper this, of course. But I think that empathy, it gives us the emotional drive, the moral center, which leads to us even engaging in any effort to address or create policy.
But the real goal here is, of course, not to generate empathy. The real goal here is to suggest that if you disagree with the idea that America is systemically and institutionally racist, you are not an empathetic person, and therefore you're a bad, cruel, and callous person.
Well, no, you're just stupid. I want to clarify this. It's possible to be an empathetic person, and not believe that systemic racism exists in America. You can just be dumb. Sure. But when I'm arguing with people like Ben, you never want to call them like unempathetic, because people like Ben will treat that as a badge of pride. It doesn't mean anything to them. If you say you're a heartless monster, what they hear is, wow, your data and rigorous adherence to logic defied me so substantially that you are unable to come up with any greater an impugnment of my character than to suggest that my adherence to logic defies your irrational emotive response to the situation thus forth. That's what they hear. They treat it as a compliment. Do we have any edgy... Shoo, you're edgy. Do we not have any edgelords in here who are like who kind of like thought they were like monsters, like back in high school? You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, everyone else so empathetic. There's something wrong with me. But is it something wrong with me, or is it something wrong with the rest of them? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. That's what people like Ben think, like 24/7. So calling them unempathetic is very rarely an effective way of getting them to change their behavior.
The idea is that empathy is really about, it's really a moral statement about what kind of good person you are. And you can't watch baseball until you say it along with Morgan Freeman. You can't.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck he's going on about here at the end with Morgan Freeman. Is he unironically doing the get politics out of my sports things? I agree. How about we get the goddamn Pledge of Allegiance and the American flag out of baseball? Am I right, fellas? How about let's get politics out of there, okay? Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. So let's stop getting thanks to military personnel before every fucking game. Let's stop getting the fucking jet flyovers every once in a while for like the big promo games, okay? Let's stop having all the fucking politicians do the first throw of the season bullshit, okay? Get all that politics out of there, okay? I'm joking, of course. Everything is political. Get politics out of the Olympics, why don't you?
And you can't watch baseball until you say it along with Morgan Freeman. You can't. You can't just watch a game and be distracted, which is the goal of sports.
God, conservatives always sound like such bitches when they complain about that. I watch sports to be distracted. I watch sports to I don't like seeing the knee. Like, I'm sorry, it's juvenile for me to make fun of them, but it feels so juvenile of them to do. Like, fuck. Jesus Christ, quit being such a fucking pussy, okay? I'm so sorry you have to endure the unbelievable fucking hardship of being reminded that progressive people exist during your sports games during an unprecedented global movement against systemic racism. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Also, keep in mind, here, I'm taking Ben Shapiro's advice. Right now, he's complaining about having to see politics in games. I feel no empathy for him. I'm taking your advice, Ben. I'm taking your advice right now. I feel zero empathy for you whatsoever. You didn't want to relax. I don't care. I feel nothing. I'm empty inside. My heart is cold and hard to your complaints. There we go. Ben Shapiro BTFO'd me out there in the end. BTFO'd out me. Why do I do this to myself? BTFO'd me.
Use Artlist today and get the best music for your videos. You're an indie filmmaker.
That's the song.
You're the producer.
You up? Yes.
The director.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
You're even the water boy.
70% water. Action.
You'll do whatever it takes to get that shot. You're as indie as they get. It's not always easy, but filmmaking is your passion. With Artlist, indie never sounded so good. Go to Artlist now and start creating.
Do you want to learn to draw professional and impressive artwork from scratch that will blow people's minds? I'm Scott Harris, professional illustrator, painter, and artist. My character drawing course on Udemy has helped thousands of students gain the art skills they need to draw well, and I can teach you too. For a limited time, get up to 75% off my best-selling Udemy course. Just click the button below to get started now. Over 25 hours of in-depth training will teach you to draw professionally, whether you're young or old, a beginner, or you have some experience. From absolute drawing basics like shape and form to advanced drawing principles including gestures and composition. Learn at your own pace, anywhere, and on any device. I'm so confident that my course will teach you to draw to a professional level. There's even a 100% money-back guarantee. No questions asked. Thousands of students have made their art dreams a reality. What are you waiting for? Sign up now with the button below, risk-free with a special discount. And let's get started.
Welcome to Conversations with Coleman. My guest today is Sam Harris, neuroscientist, author of The End of Faith, Waking Up, The Moral Landscape, Free Will, Lying, podcaster extraordinaire, and one of my personal heroes. Thank you for being on the show, Sam.
Oh, well, thanks for jumping into this. It's great to, you are one of my personal heroes now as well, as you may know. So, I'm happy to inaugurate your podcast. I don't know how many episodes you've done. How deep are you into the recording at this point?
You're my third.
Uh-huh.
But I'm probably going to release you first.
All right. Well, happy to be here.
Yeah. So I was thinking we would start off by talking about reparations, if that's okay with you.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't. This is a topic that I think is genuinely difficult, about which I don't have a settled opinion. So my mind is unusually open on this topic.
Yeah, and my mind is, I think, more open than you would expect it to be. You know, I've evolved in my thinking on this issue, even in